MVP. When you look back at the season from hell that the Fever had, none of us expected them to be in this situation. None of us expected them to be winning a very close Game 3.
You just heard the setup for a story that took over the internet. The perfect underdog narrative. The idea that Caitlin Clark, against all odds, could make a miracle return for the WNBA Finals. But what if I told you that entire story was a lie? Not a mistake, not an exciting theory. A lie. And today, we're going to prove it. More importantly, we're going to expose the real story the media was too busy to find. The story of why the Indiana Fever really left a valuable playoff roster spot open. A move so calculated, it turned the biggest weakness of their season into their most powerful weapon. We are a community of narrative analysts here, dedicated to filtering out the noise and finding the truth. If that's what you're here for, do us a favor and hit that like button right now. It tells us we're on the right track. All right, let's get into it. For weeks, you've been told about a loophole, a secret backdoor in the WNBA's rulebook that could put Caitlin Clark back on the court. The story was compelling. It gave fans hope, and it generated a ton of clicks. There's just one problem. It was never possible, and the proof has been sitting there in plain sight the entire time. The WNBA's playoff roster rules are brutally simple. Before the postseason begins, each team submits its official list of active players. Once that deadline passes, the roster is locked. Final. No exceptions for situations like this. And Caitlin Clark, as we know from the team's own official announcement on September 4th, was not on that list. So the loophole that the competitor video and other outlets hyped up. It's a fantasy. According to the league's own procedures, a player in Clark's situation cannot be activated. The door wasn't cracked open, it was slammed shut, bolted, and locked from the inside the moment those rosters were submitted. So, we've established a critical fact. The Caitlin Clark return story was a media-fueled fantasy, a great headline, but completely disconnected from procedural reality. The Indiana Fever front office knew from the moment they submitted their playoff roster that she was ineligible. And for all the narrative analysts watching, this is where the real investigation begins. This is the question that should have been asked from day one. If the team knew Clark couldn't return, then why in the world would they intentionally submit an 11-player roster when the league allows 12? Think about that. Playoff roster spots are precious. Every single spot is a valuable asset. An extra defender, a shooting specialist, or just a fresh body to absorb fouls and minutes in a grueling series. To willingly go into the most important games of the season shorthanded is a move that defies all conventional logic. It's a decision that screams there's another story happening just beneath the surface. And this is where we have to filter out the noise and connect the dots the mainstream media missed while they were chasing a ghost. What if the empty roster spot wasn't a mistake? What if it had nothing to do with a hopeful return? What if it was a calculated, deliberate act of psychological warfare? Was this a massive front office blunder, or was it a 4D chess move that everyone else missed? Let me know your initial gut reaction in the comments below. Blunder or masterstroke? Okay, for those of you who commented masterstroke, you were connecting the same dots we were. Let's break down the first layer of this brilliant strategy. Weaponizing uncertainty. Imagine you are the coach of the Las Vegas Aces, the defending champions and the heavy favorites in this series. Your entire job is to prepare your team for the most critical games of the season. Your focus is singular. Create a game plan to stop the Indiana Fever. But how can you create one game plan when the Fever, through their silence and that mysterious empty roster spot, are forcing you to prepare for two completely different teams? Without Caitlin Clark, your defensive strategy is clear. You can pack the paint, focus your energy on containing the formidable Aliyah Boston, and try to limit the scoring outbursts from Kelsey Mitchell. The defensive assignments are relatively conventional. But the possibility of Clark playing, no matter how small, changes everything. Her presence on the floor completely alters the geometry of the court. Her legendary shooting range would force the Aces' defense to stretch out 30 feet from the basket, creating massive driving lanes and open shots for everyone else. These aren't just two slightly different game plans, they are two fundamentally different basketball philosophies. And in the high-stakes environment of the WNBA Finals, every single hour of film study, every minute on the practice court is gold. By creating a phantom threat, the Fever forced the Aces to spend a significant portion of that priceless time preparing for a ghost, a player who the Fever's front office knew was never going to set foot on the court. It's a strategic masterstroke, and it's only the beginning of the story. But distracting the Aces was only half of the equation. The other, arguably more brilliant, part of the strategy was about controlling the narrative to protect and empower their own players. The Caitlin Clark effect, yes, is a media tidal wave. Every move she makes, on or off the court, becomes a headline. The Fever's front office understood they couldn't stop this wave, so they learned how to redirect it. By allowing the miracle return story to dominate the news cycle, they created the perfect smokescreen. All the cameras, all the questions, and all the national pressure were focused on a player sitting on the bench. This gave the actual players on the court, Aliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Natasha Howard, the breathing room they desperately needed. Instead of being bombarded with questions about the pressure of the finals, they were able to lock in. The media was too busy chasing a ghost to realize the real story was the resilience of the 11 players who were actually winning the games. And this media circus perfectly fueled the team's core identity. While the world was debating if they needed their superstar back, the team was quietly proving they could win without her. It created the ultimate us against the world mentality. Every victory became a statement, a defiant roar from a team that refused to be defined by who was missing. You can hear that grit in their coach Stephanie White's own words after a pivotal win. It's not finished, we're not done. Caitlin Clark, for her part, played her role in this perfectly. Her social media was a constant stream of support, praising teammates like Kelsey Mitchell as unreal and defending her squad at every turn. She never fed the return rumors, but she never extinguished them either. She simply absorbed the national spotlight and redirected its energy back onto her team, all while the front office played chess in the background. So let's filter out all the noise and connect the final dots. The viral story of Caitlin Clark's miracle return was never the real story. It was a complete fabrication, a media narrative built on a non-existent loophole. The real story, the one happening in the shadows, was the Indiana Fever's front office executing a brilliant, multi-layered strategy. The intentionally vacant 11th roster spot was never about hope. It was a weapon. It was a phantom threat used to distract and confuse their opponents, and it was a media smokescreen used to absorb the crushing weight of the national spotlight, allowing the 11 players on the court the freedom to become a championship-caliber team. The Indiana Fever didn't just play basketball in these finals. They played the entire media landscape, and they won. But that's our analysis. Now we want to hear from you. Do you believe this was a strategic masterstroke by the Fever's front office? Or do you think they just got lucky that the media ran with a false narrative? Let us know which side you're on in the comments below. If you believe the real story is never the official one and you want more deep dive investigations that filter out the noise, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. We're always tracking the story behind the story. And finally, if you know another fan who was caught up in the Perron miracle return hype, share this video with them. Every narrative analyst deserves to know the real game being played.